Hey, coming at you one more time from the Porter House. One of the things we definitely would have gotten into this semester is these trig ratios. So today, for this video, I've got a very small, tiny introduction into trigonometry. So I got 9 examples for you, but at the end of the video, there's 2 homework problems you got to turn in to me. Only 2. It's not bad. So trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent. 3 of my best friends. So let me give you an introduction to how this works. Let's do first number 1. Let's say and you've got this right triangle. Has to be a right triangle. So when we work with right triangles, you'll have an angle given to you. So each time there's a specific angle to work with. Let's say we've got angle A right here is the chosen angle. So with angle A, you've got these 3 sides that you have to label correctly. Now one of the sides you already know, big fancy geometry word, hypotenuse. So across from the right angle is our largest side is your hypotenuse. Across from the right angle, largest side, hypotenuse. We also have to label these other 2 sides. The hypotenuse never changes. It's always opposite the right angle. But your opposite side is always opposite of the given angle. So if this is your given angle to work with, opposite of this is your opposite side. The side right next to your given angle is labeled adjacent. So labeling these 3 sides is a big deal. You're going to have to do it on all the examples, on all the grand total of 2 homework questions. Alright, so given this angle, hypotenuse never changes. You always have to label opposite as opposite and next to it as adjacent. Alright, let's practice labeling all 3 sides correctly. Here we go. Number 2. So let's say we've got a second right triangle to work with, and I have to give you a specific angle to go with. Let's say you got angle B right here. That's your chosen angle. Label all 3 sides correctly. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. Let's go. Across from the right angle, always hypotenuse. Across from the right angle never changes, always hypotenuse. Based on this angle that's given to you, you have to label these 2 sides as opposite and adjacent. So opposite of the chosen angle is labeled opposite. Right next to the chosen angle is labeled adjacent. So you have to label all 3 sides correctly. Let's do it again. So the question of the day, can you label all 3 sides correctly? Alright, it has to be a right triangle, have to label all 3 sides, and it's based on a given angle each time. So this time you've got angle C to work with right there. So based on angle C, can you label all 3 sides correctly? This is the question. Alright, here's my right angle, opposite of it. That's my hypotenuse. I can definitely get that one right. And then I look, here's my angle that I have to work with, opposite of him. I label my opposite side. So angle, opposite side. Angle right next to it is my adjacent side. So you have to label all 3 sides correctly. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent, all based on that angle. Alright, one more time to see if we can label all 3 sides correctly, like if we got this. Alright, has to be a right triangle. And I will give you a specific angle to start with, angle D. Based on angle D, it's a race. Who can label all 3 sides the fastest and get it correct? Here's my right angle. Opposite of it has to be the hypotenuse. That never changes. Now what will change is the opposite and adjacent depending on your angle. Here's my angle. So across from it is the opposite side. Right next to it is my adjacent side. So I have labeled all 3 sides correctly. So we work with these trig ratios with hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. So knowing those 3 sides, and you are off to an awesome start. All right, here we go. Our three trig ratios are called sine, they're called cosine, and way down here is tangent. Sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, you'll never write these out. These never get written out. They're always abbreviated. So sine is always S-I-N. Cosine is C-O-S. Tangent is just tan. So sine, cosine, and tangent. And you'll see this on your calculator. So when you've been doing math and you look at your calculator, you're like, oh, sine, cosine, and tangent. I always wonder what those were for. These are all ratios. They're fractions. So your sine, cosine, and tangent ratios are made up of those three sides: opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Sine is your ratio of the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So sine represents opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, normal class week, I would give you this, and then I guarantee we would have had a quiz where you have to memorize this. Like this right here, you would have to have memorized. Like you would have, I would say cosine, you would say adjacent over hypotenuse. I would say tangent, you'd say opposite over adjacent. Like you have to have these memorized. But we're not in class, so you're missing out on that little quiz. There is a trick to memorizing all that, like knowing that sine, cosine, and tangent and what they turn out to be. There's a word that doesn't make any sense. SOHCAHTOA. So let's see here. I have no idea where we're at on the examples. I'll just say this is number 6. We'll just call it 6. SOHCAHTOA. You're like, well, I don't know what that means, SOHCAHTOA. You're just making up stuff, Mr. Porter. So if you can remember SOHCAHTOA, it just helps you memorize sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So this is how it works. Sine, opposite, hypotenuse. So that helps us remember that sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Sine for S, opposite with an O, hypotenuse with an H. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So you can help kind of put all three of these trig ratios in your head, in your memory, a little quicker with this. Like tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. So whenever you're sitting in math class next year and you're doing these ratios and somebody says SOHCAHTOA and you're like, what did that kid just say? Like, now you know. Cosine, adjacent, or hypotenuse. So it's just a way to help you memorize things. All right, guys, we're doing pretty good. Here we go. That was number 6, I said. Let's just say this is number 7. So let's actually do one of these introduction problems. Let's just do one. All right, let's say we've got this right triangle. And I'm going to give you all three sides, 8, 15, 17. There's all three sides. And here is angle K. So we're actually going to do one of these intro problems. So this is what your homework will look like. So at the end of this video, I'm going to give you 2 problems. This is what you're going to be doing. All right, so for this example, for this introduction, must label all three sides correctly. So here's angle K. We know this is our hypotenuse. We know this is our opposite side. And then right next to it is adjacent. So you have to label all three sides correctly. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent, all based on the angle given to you. Once you have all three sides labeled correctly, we're going to knock out our trig ratios. So we've got sine, we've got cosine, oops, need a little bit more room than that, and we've got tangent. So sine, cosine, tangent. So for example 7, you're going to do 3 problems. You're going to do a sine, a cosine, and tangent. Now, do you have it memorized? What is sine? Sine, and you always have to state it of your angle. So we're working angle K right here. So sine of angle K, cosine of angle K, tangent of angle K. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And we look at our triangle, say, okay, opposite and hypotenuse. My opposite is 15, my hypotenuse is 17. So my answer is going to be 15 over 17. That's how you find your fraction, how you find your trig ratio. That's your answer. So for cosine, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we look back here, adjacent is 8, hypotenuse is 17. And so 8 over 17, that's our second answer. You have a third trig ratio. We have tangent way down here. And tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. And your opposite side is 15, your adjacent side is 8. So this is 15 over 8. So your answers are right here. 15 over 17, 8 over 17, 15 over 8. These are your three trig ratios for this problem. So when you do your homework at the end of this video, this is what it's going to look like. Let's practice one more time, and then we'll shoot you those homework problems. All right, one last warm-up example here. We'll call this number 9. So there's my right triangle. You can see that. Let's call this, we just did angle K. Let's call this one angle P. So you got angle P, we've got this side as 20, this side is 21, hypotenuse is 29. So the first thing you have to do on these problems is label all three sides correctly. We've been doing it the entire video, labeling all three sides. So here is my angle. So based on that, this is my opposite side, this is my adjacent, and bam, right there, never changes, it's opposite the right angle, that's your hypotenuse. So I've got all three sides labeled correctly. After you label them correctly, we're going to find our three trig ratios. Sine, cosine, and tangent. And remember, it's representative of this angle. So the sine of angle P, the cosine of angle P, the tangent of angle P. So do you have it memorized yet? Do you have it SOHCAHTOA? Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent, opposite over adjacent. All right, once you have it all set up, you're going to put numbers in place of each one of your sides. So to write your ratio, to write this fraction, let's bring in the numbers. So opposite side, opposite, 21, hypotenuse, 29. So your answer is going to be 21 over 29. That's for sine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent side is 20, hypotenuse is 29. So we have 20 over 29. There's our second answer. Third answer, tangent. Tangent is the opposite, 21. The adjacent, 20. So we have this, 21 over 20. And you can leave it just like that. You don't have to change anything. So that would represent your three answers. Ooh, that looked a little bit chopped off. Let's make sure here. See if we can see that on the video. So this is 21 over 20. Yeah, you can see that now. Okay, so there's your examples for this assignment. Here comes the actual homework assignment that you got to turn in to me. So use these examples to help you. It's going to look just like this. So if you can do this, you're set for turning in your assignment. Okay. So on your own paper, you're going to put a big label. You're going to call this trig. homework. So you got some trig homework. So here is number 1. We got 7, 24, 25. And I'm going to give you angle M. So based on angle M, you got to label all 3 sides correctly. And then you got to run it. You got to run sine of angle M, cosine of angle M, tangent of angle M. So your first question of the 2, sine, cosine, and tangent, label all 3 sides, drop it in. That's your first one. And then we have a second one. Let's get you the second one right here. Number 2. Three, 4, 5. Let's get you an angle to work with. How about angle N? So you got sine of angle N, cosine of angle N, tangent of angle N. So your job for these 2 questions, draw the picture, write out the ratios, show me sine, cosine, and tangent for all of your 2 problems. So make it look awesome. Write your title, draw your picture, give me all the trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, take a picture of it, email me the picture, it'll look great. All right, guys, that was an introduction to trig. Have fun with all that.